Good morning and welcome to Has God Heard From You today. So glad you joined us. Call several and let them know we're on the air. And I just thank you all for watching. Word of mouth is serving to be very good. And as you know, we give God all the glory, all the praise. This handsome young man you see sitting next to me is Corporal Marcus Hines, and I'm just going to applaud you for the many others that I'm sure doing that right now at this time.
Thank you.
Because regardless of what's going on, we appreciate you. Like I said, no matter what, who are we going to call?
Yes,
the
ma'am.
police, you know.
Yes, ma'am.
He is here to enlighten you all on some things, and I'm not going to tell you how this came about. You know, eventually I will, but I don't want to waste time with that right now. Just know I am excited and thanking God. And Lord, you know I love you. I thank you, Jesus, for allowing him. And we're going to have Sergeant Washington to join us in part 2, so make sure you watch next week. Corporal Hines, as we discussed on the phone, I'm so glad you're here.
Thank you.
And you know the things that we discussed, and they were right on key. So if you will tell the public some of the things that we discussed that they need to know when an officer stops them, just the whole thing in general, we're in your hands right now.
Well, first of all, Ms. Chair, I want to thank you for inviting me to the program today.
Yes.
We're very excited about the things that you've done and the things that you continue to do and trying to raise the awareness
Yes,
by having us on your program to help and hopefully enlighten some of your viewers ways in which they can better be served by the things that we do. We enjoy doing our job, and we believe that by doing so in a professional manner, everyone benefits from that.
Right.
Basically, to touch on some of the things that we talked about on the phone yesterday, many people who encounter police officers do so after they've been pulled over on a traffic stop.
Right.
The majority of interaction with police officers daily come from people who are driving a vehicle or may even be a passenger in a vehicle. And so what we've seen and what oftentimes is shown in the media is negative interaction between police officers and persons who are being pulled over for whatever reason that they are stopped. But before we get into that, I think what helps people to better understand why this happens is you have to have a basic understanding of the law.
Yes, sir.
You don't have to be a Rhodes Scholar or anything like that, but you need to have a basic understanding of the law. We live here in the United States of America. We are governed by laws which are put in place by elected officials.
Yes, sir.
And as law enforcement officers, that is our sworn duty to enforce the law.
Right.
So therefore, as a citizen, whether by birth or naturalization, you are bound by the laws of the land.
Exactly.
So therefore, if we can understand that before we go any further, you then further understand that when a police officer, for whatever reason, pulls you over, you are bound by law to be in a position where you need to obey
Exactly.
what he or she is asking you to do.
Exactly.
So many times when people get stopped, the first thing they want to do is be argumentative. And that in and of itself can be a problem. They say, well, you don't have a right to stop me and pull me over. Well, on the contrary, they do have a right.
Yes, sir.
You know, the law says so. There are even Supreme Court cases, the highest court in the land, I think it's Maryland versus Wilson, that actually tells you why an officer can pull you over and even ask you out of your car.
Yes, sir.
Well, I ain't
Would you
getting out of
repeat
my
that
car.
one? Would you
Yes.
please repeat
Because,
that
well,
one?
I'm not getting out of my car. Well, if that officer, for whatever reason, he or she feels the need to ask you out of your car, the Supreme Court decisions have said you will comply with that.
You will comply.
And so if you look at a number of videos, and the general public simply doesn't understand, not the overall public. There are members in our society who will argue the point that the police officer, law enforcement, doesn't have the right to pull you over. That's not true.
Right.
That they don't have the right to ask you to step out of your car. Again, This is not true.
That's not true.
This is horrible information. And this is the type of information that's getting people in very precarious situations.
Yes, sir.
That don't always end well. Because I'll give you a quick example, because I know we may be pressed on time. But, you know, if someone may be coming from Sunday service and he's in the car with his family, they say they're driving a tan Bonneville. Well, you have a police officer here who's seated at Circle K. He may be drinking coffee and eating donuts. Well, the majority of the calls that we receive as police officers come across this police scanner.
Right.
And that police officer is dispatched to a call. The only information that he or she has at the moment is the information that is coming across this radio. Right. That information comes from a dispatcher who receives that information from a private citizen who says this is going on and they need the police to respond. So once that police officer who's at Circle K responds to this call, he's being told that a tan Bonneville is wanted in connection with the crime. Well, that's all they know. They don't know. They didn't say what color the driver is. It's a hypothetical situation. However, they see you, who's just coming from church, in your tan Bonneville. So they pull you over. Well, the first thing in your mind is, I hadn't done anything. I'm just coming from church. So why are they messing with me?
Right.
What have I done?
Right.
Well, at this point, again, going back to what you must do as a private citizen by respecting the law, if he pulls you over, you see those lights, then you need to bring your vehicle to a stop as quickly, as safely as possible. And at that point, the officer will then give you some directives on what he or she is requesting that you do. If he's saying, ma'am, you know, would you please, you know, when he tells you to pull over, you're thinking, okay, I hadn't done anything. Some people are automatically on the defensive. Well, the police officer doesn't know that. He doesn't know whether you're the right person or not. All he knows, you're in the tan Bonneville, that's the information he has. But you don't know that, what he knows. So when he makes contact with you, he may introduce himself as Corporal Hines and explain to you why he stopped you. He doesn't necessarily have to explain to you right then. Okay? Some people, well, you need to tell me why. No. You don't need to tell the police officer what he needs to do.
Okay.
You know.
And well, I thought I was getting the signal to stop, and we do this all the time because I will go over.
Yes,
so
ma'am.
come on, we don't need to tell the police what to do. I want them to hear that.
Well, because so many people, again, they'll get on social media and they'll get videos from people who simply don't understand how the law applies to them, and they will take that information and they say, well, you have to do this and you have to do that. No, ma'am. It's not that way. But simply if you would just comply, the officer will soon learn you're not the person that we're looking for. Ma'am, have a nice day, and you go on about your business. Well, on the flip side of that, now if you're resisting by not, and people, let me explain resisting to you. Resisting doesn't always mean physically fighting with the police officer, okay? If this officer is asking you to do something, you're just simply not doing it, then the law says that's another form of resisting. Okay, so some people need to understand here in Louisiana, battery and assault are two different things. Somebody may think that I swing at you, well, he assaulted me, that's assault, but if I hit you, it's battery. So they're two completely different things, but it's the same way when officers are giving you directives. The best thing to do is to comply, and you will see that things will go a lot smoother because that officer doesn't want to be injured. He wants to go home to his family, and you want to go home to yours. Don't buy into what you're seeing on the television because the large majority of interaction with police officers end well. But for those few that do end tragically, or there's some questions or some circumstances that don't look right, then those should be dealt with appropriately, because if you have mutual respect for law enforcement and law enforcement has mutual respect for the public, I think everybody comes out on the winning end of that.
And we're going to go over the do's and the don'ts. You answered two of the questions that I was asked to ask you about. If you say, step out of your car, you step out of your car. You're right. That is not, they're not aware of that. A lot of people, I can't understand that because of my generation. If we see the flashing lights, we were pulling over. You know, we may have the thoughts, what did I do? But we're going to respect authority. So we have to take that commercial break that I thought I was going to take a few minutes ago. You know, I always go over the time, and it's because of Eli. Call someone, let them know we're still on the air. We'll be right back. Thank you, and we're going to get right back to Corporal Hines, who's giving some, we needed to know this, you guys. Your children, your grandchildren, they need to know this. And I will be posting this, of course, on my website, on YouTube, yes, on Facebook, because you remember most people get their information from Facebook. So we're going to get right back to Corporal Hines.
Well, thank you. And as we spoke over the commercial break, Facebook and a lot of social media, we have so many people who speak out. And the part about Facebook, while it may be a good avenue for some things, that is not where you need to get your legal advice when it comes down to these things are public record. You can pull them up in the library, you can Google it in, and you can clearly see what the law says about how you should respond when you're being pulled over by a police officer. And we think it's our responsibility to some degree. And again, it all boils down to when you have a large number of people, not just necessarily young people, but when you have a large number of people who receive bad information, it has bad long-term effects.
Yes,
so we want people to understand that we are here because when you think about the median salary of a police officer, it's not very high.
No.
Okay, when you have to wear a bulletproof vest to work, that may suggest you have a fairly dangerous job.
Of course.
But the majority of police officers who willingly get out of their beds every day and leave their families to come out and protect complete strangers many a times do so because they have a servant's heart. And I can speak for a lot of the officers that I work with, and unfortunately in any profession you're going to find some bad apples, but again, the communication that we put out there, we wanted to help people to understand this information will help save your life, because again, you have to think what a police officer goes through. Everyone looks at this like your mom and dad would always tell you, 2 sides to every story.
Every story.
Don't take something, you be slow to respond to things if you don't know the whole story. Because certain things can be made to look a certain way, and if you're responsible, then you won't just jump off the deep end. Oh, I'm the judge, jury, and executioner, and I've seen 2 seconds of a video.
Okay.
That's not responsible. But again, most of the things that we do are recorded anyway. Right. Your audio and video on 99% of your traffic stops here in Shreveport will be recorded via audio and video for the most part. So that's something to be aware of. If you have a disagreement with a police officer, if you're given a citation, then guess what you're also given? You're given a court date.
Yes.
The side of I-49 is not the place where you want to argue a ticket.
Exactly.
Okay? You have a courtroom for that. And that's what we tell. If you don't agree with the ticket, you don't even have to sign the ticket. Okay? It says you will appear in court, and there you have a judge and a city prosecutor, and they will review the case at that time. What we have to stop doing, and I'm not just talking about African Americans, I'm not going to single us out, but you have to stop automatically painting law enforcement with a broad brush.
Okay.
Because the interaction with this officer is simply not going to be the same with that officer. I don't think that's fair to do that. I think that's reckless, and responsible people generally don't do that. But when you have a situation, again, don't tongue wrestle with the officer on the side of the road. That gets you nowhere fast. That can be a situation that goes downhill very rapidly. But our training here at the police department is to always be courteous and professional. If you have an officer who you feels like was not acting in a professional and courteous manner, then we also have ways to deal with that through internal affairs. Okay. And this is what we try to tell people: don't automatically jump out on the defensive because you got pulled over. That officer may have been trying to tell you, hey, you got a tail light out. It's not an automatic reason to go, rah, 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 rah. And we've got to stop doing that.
Yes.
If a white officer pulls you over, you're not just being stopped because you're black. Okay? And there's the deal. I can't say that's never happened. Okay? I can't ever say that's, but the 9 times out of 10, there's a legitimate reason for why you are stopped. So just stop jumping out the car. The only reason you pulled, no, I pulled you over because you were speeding. Yeah. You just happen to be and speeding. But I think that can be reckless. We've got to stop doing that. But officers are people just like everyone else.
Sir.
You're dealing with human beings, not robots.
Right.
People say, well, they should hold police officers to a high standard. I do, believe that when people say your Shreveport's finest, that should reflect in your actions, your deeds, and your thoughts, the way you handle yourself. I believe that's what they're talking about. It should be reflective if you're going to wear this uniform, because people do expect for you to handle things differently. Yeah, you're still human beings and you're prone to make mistakes, but you should try to limit as many as you can.
Exactly.
And treat folks like you want to be treated. Real simple stuff. Treat others like you want to be treated. That doesn't cost you anything.
That's it right there.
That's kindergarten advice, but it
Okay.
works. Good stuff. These are things that you learn in grade school. So we want people to be mindful of that when we deal with them. At the end of the day, we much rather go home without having to put our hands on anybody.
Yes.
But we do know in a situation there are some people who's understanding, and especially with some of the younger generation who have been taught. And this is the problem with young people having children. If you 15 and you have a child and you've not been properly raised, now you have a child coming up behind you, and that just compounds the problem, because this generation feels like, and I've heard them say it, they'll tell you can't put your hands on me. Where did you get that from? Where did you get the fact that a police officer can't touch you?
Come on.
Who is responsible for telling young people this flat out lies?
Come on.
No truth in it whatsoever. You can't.
Authority, you all. Authority.
So I think my mindset believes that as you look at some of the things that have happened in the school system, teachers can't touch the children. Back in my day, my mom would come to school. I wouldn't want her there.
Yeah, because
I knew I'm going to be in trouble.
Yes.
Well, now the mama come to the school, cuss the teacher out, principal, security, and everybody else. And you wonder why little Johnny act the way he acts when it's time to deal with law enforcement. Because here's the deal: while your teacher probably can't physically restrain you, that's completely different when it becomes a law enforcement officer if you are committing a criminal act.
Yes, sir.
Okay, and that's the same thing. It has to be a criminal act that you're engaged in, and the police has every right to use the appropriate amount of force based on the totality of what's going on to handle that situation. But again, knowledge is what we're lacking. I think if we had to sum it up, I just simply believe it's the lack of knowledge that people don't understand. How do you think police officers, this badge, you're working under a shield through the state of Louisiana that gives you your law enforcement powers. Okay, that's why you your oath, and at the end, it tells you through the state of Louisiana you are sworn to uphold these laws. So that's what gives you the ability and the authority to stop somebody, to arrest someone with probable cause, and even stop. You got to have probable cause. But I think if people better understood this, then we alleviate a lot of the problems. Get off Facebook with the foolishness.
I don't want you to stop. That's what, because we're just. I know they're enjoying this, and I am going to have to stop just for a second. We're going to come right back with Corporal Hines. You all, I hope you're taking this to heart. I just hope you are. We'll be right back. Hi, I'm Deborah with Has God Heard From You Today? I'm spreading the focus of seeking God more, talking to God more. If you have a testimony and you're not ashamed to tell it, call me. Let's encourage others. Having a relationship with God is truly personal. Has God heard from you today? Welcome back. And Corporal Hines, wow. I know you all have been enlightened on what he's telling you, and since we're in the last 5 minutes, and we are going to do a part 2, and we're going to have Sergeant Washington to join us, so make sure you tune in the following week, if I'm guided, to air it back to back. But I will be airing this one next week. In closing, until we do part 2, 3 things, but to me it sums down to 1. If the police pulls you over, zip it, listen to him. If you feel in danger, he just told you what to do. So, what are your closing remarks for now?
I believe, and again, thank you so much for inviting us to the program today. If people would do the simple common sense things, treat that officer's authority. Even if you don't respect the officer, respect his authority.
Yes.
Because that's the thing. You're not looking at the officer. Look, you have to look at the authority. And it's very important, again, because there's been so much here recently in the media about bad police officers. But when I look at it from different lenses, simply because I grew up in an inner city neighborhood. Mm-hmm. I hadn't always been the police. Mm-hmm. You know, I've been stopped as a young black man growing up in the hood, mm-hmm. you know, and now as a police officer myself, I can see every avenue and how these young men feel. So, well, you don't understand. I vividly understand. Right. I've been there. I've been you. Right. You know, and so now I also understand the role of law enforcement. If you subtract law enforcement from our society, just for 24 hours, and there's no enforcement of
5 minutes,
you know, then it's complete anarchy.
Yes.
You know, if someone's breaking into your house, you're not going to be calling saying, okay, 911, send me a police officer. Wait a minute, is he white or black? You're not going to ask that question. No. You want the police there as fast as they can get there. And the police is not going to say, well, wait a minute, am I going to a White House or a black house? They know somebody needs help, and they're going to respond. You know, so just in closing, to wrap it all up, the main thing is understand that police officers, their job is necessary. That their job is a noble profession, and they are there for you. Yeah. I try to tell people your tax dollars pay police officers, sheriff's deputies, city marshals. You know, these are working. You know, we get paid from tax dollars, so therefore we work for the public. And however, the public has got to understand the role that law enforcement has in order to enforce those laws. I think as a parent, you should educate your children on the do's and don'ts if they're going to start driving. I also believe that the state should put something in the driver's license manual on how, because again, I think it should be mandatory that you go through a course now in this day and age, because there's so much bad information out there. Mm-hmm. In order to successfully get a driver's license, you need to know this is what you need to do if you are stopped. Don't jump out of your car and run up on a police officer, because he or she has no idea who you are. They don't know if you just robbed a bank. They don't know if you have ill intentions to hurt them. So that's never a good idea to jump out of your car and confront the police officer with an attitude, because he or she just simply doesn't know.
Trying to protect you.
Right. So I think those are some just basic common sense things. We could go on and on about some other aspects of law enforcement, because this simply isn't all we do. We have a large role that we play in the community in which we live. I think Sergeant Washington may cover some of that in his, with community-oriented policing. We're part of this community too. We live here. Yeah. We have families here too. So I'm not in this uniform every day. I go to the movies, I may go to the restaurant, and I like getting along with people. So I don't come out here every day just to have problems with people. But again, we do realize we live in a society where everybody isn't always doing what they're supposed to do. Thus, we have a job, and we're going to continue to do that job. And if you see us falling short, there are ways to handle that. I will never sit here and tell you that police officers have always done everything right. That's not true. But again, you have some citizens who hadn't done everything always right either. That's why you have jails. Right. You can ask some of those guys. They in there because they, did things that they were found guilty of doing. So again, we're glad to do this job. We're going to continue to do it. And if y'all have any questions or comments, we'll be more than happy to answer anything that you could ask about law enforcement.
Okay. Corporal Hines, I can't express, especially the way this happened, and I didn't want to spend any time on that. But you all knowing me and who have been watching the program, this is under the guidance of the Holy Spirit, and for that we give Him praise. We thank you so much.
Thank you. Pleasure all.
So much, and thank you all for serving, protecting us. He's telling me to wrap it up as usual. We will be back. Remember, if you're not spending time with God, you all pray. Make sure you pray for our police department, not just them, all. We will talk to you later. See you next week. Thank you for tuning in to Has God Heard From You Today? We ask that you tune into us each Wednesday for inspiring testimonies and more. We're not here to tell you that going through is easy. We're here to tell you that if you believe in God and you have accepted Jesus as your personal Savior, then you have His word, you have His promise that He will never leave you nor forsake you. Has God heard from you today?
Yes, God has heard from me today.
If you would like to share your testimony or advertise your business or an upcoming event on this program, please call 318-222-2954. Also, visit our website at www.hasgodheardfromutoday.org.